Hey, everybody. I am Patricia Young with Follow My Heels Home, brokered by Real Brokerage. And welcome to Let's Get Real, where I am talking to entrepreneurs like yourself across the nation and finding out what makes them successful and keeps them at the top of their game. Joining me today, I am so excited, is Dane Wilson. Dane is the owner of Lender's Choice Credit Services. So Dane, thanks so much for joining me today.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. Well, I thought that this would be a really good topic. One, because of everything that's going on right now. This 2020, the year of the pandemic and forbearance and a lot of stuff that happened. I think credit has really come in because I know recently, I've been in real estate for 16 years, and this is the first time that this was a crazy year. We had a lot of people that wanted to buy, but then what happened was due to forbearance, they didn't really understand. I think they're realizing how important credit is now. So I thought it would be great to have you come on, kind of share your experience, explain about credit and exactly what you do to help people if they have had, a little rocky past in their credit, how to fix it.
Absolutely. Happy to. So just a little bit of background. My dad was in the mortgage business for a long time, and then he got into the credit repair business. And so kind of started because he was just helping his clients, on his own, to try to help them qualify or improve their score so they could go conventional instead of FHA and kind of all of a sudden everybody in the office, all the other loan officers are using him for their clients, and he made a business out of it. And so that's all I've ever done and all I've ever known. I've been doing it about 12 years. And so our niche sort of is helping people who are wanting to become homeowners or wanting to go conventional instead of FHA and get a better rate. And so, yeah, that's sort of what we specialize in. So we get to work. This year has been crazy. It's been absolutely crazy. So it started off once we all started having to work from home and a lot of people couldn't work at all. I was hearing really sad stories. It was, we were just about to buy a house and now we can't. We lost our jobs, or now the scoring requirements increased. And then there was a lot of people, and this is a sad thing that probably a lot of people didn't think about, but there's a lot of people that had just bought a house and then lost their job. And so they were stressed trying to figure out what they were going to do, because they were counting on that income when they bought the house, and now they didn't know how long they were going to have to be out and be away. And so there was a lot of, for us, sort of, okay, I know I'm about to go through a rough time. What can I do to sort of limit the damage? What to pay, what not to pay? How can I limit the damage? What creditors are doing what to help me out, just sort of sorting through what the next steps were going to look like. So it's been, a lot of long conversations to help people sort of sort through everything and figure out what's going to work best so that once they did get back to work, they could get right back into trying to buy a house again.
So to start, explain credit, because some people think, okay, if they go on and they check their score, at these, freecreditscore.com. And, I don't think people understand, how, one looks at it versus the other. So can you go in and basically how credit is looked at?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's so many different credit scoring models. And so I try to explain it. If you think about like iPhones, every year or so they come out with a new iPhone and they try to upgrade it. They change some things. They try to make it better, but it changes. And so different lending or lenders like auto loans, mortgages, credit cards, things like that, they use different scoring models. And so you go get a car, you might see a different scoring model than when you go buy a house. But where it gets really confusing there's all these sites online where you can pull your credit report and see your scores, Credit Karma, those types of things. And they don't even use they don't even use FICO scores at all. They use a different scoring model completely called Vantage. And so the problem is they just calculate your scores totally different. So if you're looking at Credit Karma and you're trying to do the things to improve your scores, you might be doing things that either don't help your FICO score at all or don't help them as much as you think. And so that's where there's so much confusion. So within FICO scores, even, there's so many different scoring models. There's older scoring models that loan officers use in the mortgage world, and then newer scoring models come out all the time and they just change things. And so there's a lot of sort of confusion. And then there's something called industry specific scorecards that they sort of put on top of the FICO scoring model. So even though all FICO scores are FICO scores, basically if you go get a car, they're looking more heavily at your auto history. If you're going to get a house, they're looking more at your mortgage history. And so my advice to someone who just heard everything I just said or is trying to sort of navigate and understand, the best thing you can do is to go see a loan officer. A lot of people do that. They understand, you know, but there are a good bit of people I see as well who don't want to go too soon because they don't want that hard inquiry. They're so worried that, you know, going and having somebody pull your credit would, you know, really hurt your scores. And so they choose not to do it. But the truth is inquiries are a very, very small portion of what makes up your score, not something to be concerned about. The game plan, the advice, the strategy that you get from a good loan officer is going to far exceed anything that you might lose from getting a hard inquiry. And it's just the only way to get your scores that matter in the mortgage process. You can't get them online, no matter what you see on commercials and the internet and things like that. You just can't.
Now, isn't there a difference when you're talking about people are afraid to have somebody check their credit because of the inquiry? But isn't it different than, say, if you're having your credit checked versus like opening up a credit card? Isn't it different? Like one is not as severe as the other if you're checking.
Well, an inquiry is an inquiry. So what there is there's shopping windows. There's shopping windows if you go apply for a mortgage within a certain period of time, depending on the scoring model. You can apply as many times as you want within that window, and it only counts as one inquiry. But it's per category, so mortgage or auto loan. You can't cross back and forth. But an inquiry is an inquiry, though. So if you get one for a credit card and you get one for a mortgage, those two things still, you know, carry the same weight as far as inquiries go. But there's so much to it. Someone with good credit scores might go apply, and that inquiry might not drop their score at all because they're just a low risk. And if they haven't had any a long period of time, it's just not going to really affect them. But somebody who is already considered a high risk, or maybe they had a lot of recent inquiries, then that inquiry would hold more weight and be more severe because everything's based on what your risk is, right? And so if you're applying all over town and, you know, for everything, and you're already sort of in that high risk category, then they ding you a little bit more for that.
So when you say high risk category, what does that look like?
So when you look at how FICO scores are broken down, there's 5 categories. There's payment history. That's the biggest percentage of your credit score. And so if you Google, if you're at home and you're looking at this on a computer or your phone, you can Google Fico Pie Chart, and it breaks down the 5 categories into a pie chart and which ones are most important to least important. So payment history is the biggest percentage of your score. Scores typically range from 300 to 850. So 850 is really, really good. So there's 550 total points if you think about it, from 300 to 850, 550 points that you have available to you. So 35% of that is payment history. That's the biggest percentage. So on-time payment helps more than anything else can, but derogatory information on your report, like late payments, collections, charge-offs, bankruptcy, repossession, those types of things hurt your score more than anything else. And so thinking about a high-risk category, somebody that had a lot of derogatory accounts on their credit report would be considered high risk in that category. The next category, amounts owed, a big percentage of that is your credit card balances or your credit card utilization. So if your credit cards were maxed out in that category, that would be considered high risk because they don't know what your income is. Your credit scores aren't based on your debt to income or your income at all. They don't know what your income is. But if you have maxed out credit cards, that's a pretty good indicator of somebody's sort of financial health. If you have maxed out credit cards, you might have millions of dollars in the bank, but it looks, you know, like financially things are tough, versus if you had a lot of available credit and you're not using it, then things probably are financially good because you would be using those cards if you really had to.
You needed them.
And so those are the 2 main categories. It keeps going. Obviously, inquiries is a part of that. Your length of credit history is a part of that. So think about somebody who's young, maybe straight out of college, and they just opened their first credit card and it's been open a few months. That's more risky than, say, somebody who's had an open credit card for 25 years. And so that's another category. And so just, each one of those categories, you could sort of look at what would be risky and what wouldn't. But what they're looking for is on-time payments, no negative history, available credit, but with low balances, a good lengthy history so that you show over a period of time that you can manage accounts and the types of accounts that you have, revolving accounts, installment accounts, like revolving like credit card, installment like an auto loan or mortgage, and then inquiries being the last category.
So let's ask this. If somebody, say, misses one or two payments, but overall has an okay history, is there, what's a way it can that be fixed, or is that just time, or how does that work?
Yeah, so if somebody comes to me with an individual 30-day late, and that's the only derogatory thing they have on their credit report, which happens a lot because it might be that you had an annual fee on your credit card and you just didn't know, and all of a sudden you thought you paid your credit cards off in full, or a lot of people set their credit card payments up on auto draft and an annual fee throws them off. And I see that all the time. So it's an individual 30-day late. Well, an individual 30-day late may hurt your credit scores 9 months or so before you're kind of back to where you were. And so I had a call today and someone said that exact thing. They had a 30-day late. It had happened about 5 months ago, wanting to know if I could help. I said, sorry, my alarm's going off.
Okay.
It's possible to get anything off a credit report. But by the time we went through the steps and dealing with the bureaus and got something like that off, you're probably already back to where you were anyway. And so my goal would be to look at the credit report and see if there's anything that can be done around that in a short period of time to boost the scores. But usually, if that's all that we're on the credit report, it's just going to take a little bit of time. Not long. Now that's relative because some people got 30 days and they don't want to wait any longer, and so 3 months, 6 months seems like a long time. But in terms of how bad it could be, because those types of accounts will stay on your credit report for 7 years. So
yes,
just 9 months or so is not too bad. And so, but a big part of that 35% of your score payment history is made up of three categories: recency, how recent was the derogatory or the late payment; frequency, how often were you late? Was it just once over the course of a year, or was it 7 months out of the 12 months in the year? And then severity, how severe. So like a 30-day late's the least severe negative thing you can have on your report, I guess, other than an inquiry. But 60 days late, 90 days, 120, that's more severe. And so if someone came to me that had a more severe negative account or a late payment that was more than just 30 days late, then yeah, it's going to hurt for a bit, and it'd be a good idea to try to get it removed if possible. Something like that's, the best way to think about it's, if you get a speeding ticket, you can hire an attorney to get that off your record. Doesn't mean you didn't speed. You're not going saying you didn't do it necessarily. It's just possible to get it off the record. Same thing with late payments and collections, and that's obviously what we do with my business, is work to get those off. So some things are easier than others, some things are quicker than others, but we just want to clean up as much as possible, make all the content look as good as it can.
So let me ask you this: if somebody, because I know, we learned this, you pay all your credit cards off, you don't hold that debt. What if you have like one or two credit cards and you want to close one out? Do you suggest that you just maybe leave the credit card, or is it more detrimental just to shut the credit card? You know what I mean? To not use it anymore, or to completely close the account?
Yeah. So anybody listening to that question, you have to think in terms of what your goal is. So if your goal is to buy a house soon, or a car, or use your credit, then you would not want to close a credit card, because that length of credit history, like I mentioned, that's one of the factors of your score. Credit cards in that way help you more than anything else can, because you can have it over a long period of time. And as long as you don't close it, they don't close it, it's going to stay open. Whereas an auto loan, you may pay off in 4 or 5 years, and then that account closes, so it no longer helps you. So I never advise somebody to close a credit card. Now, if you are sitting here and you say, I own my house, my cars are paid off, I'm not going to be using credit for a long time, and this credit card's kind of a hassle, or it has an annual fee and I'm just wasting money, then sure. If your goal is something like that, then yeah, you can. But in terms of credit, which is usually what I'm talking about, and improving scores, I wouldn't recommend closing a credit card. In fact, 15% of your score is your length of credit history. They look at your oldest account, your average age of account, your most recently opened account. And so oldest open account, that's big, that's important. And so if you get your first credit card, let's say you're right out of college or you're in college, you get that first credit card, a $200-$300 card, huge annual fee, no rewards or benefits to the card at all. But that's just all you can get when you're straight out of college. As time goes on and you build credit, then you're able to get better credit cards that have airline miles or cash back or whatever you're looking for. If you were going to close one, which one would you be more likely to close? That $300 card,
$300 one,
does you no good. That would be the one that would actually hurt your scores the most, because that's the one you had the lengthier history with.
Right.
So that would be the last one. So if you had a few credit cards and you were going to close one, you actually want to close the one you opened most recently.
Well, and that's smart. But you see, people don't think about that. They thought, oh, the longest one with the lowest amount of credit, we don't need that one. But you're right. That makes sense. But you've had it. What if you had that credit card for 15 years? Then all of a sudden, that makes sense. Yeah. That's a good one to have. What about people that, sometimes people go to buy a house and they always hear, well, you don't have enough credit. They're like, well, I try to, keep money in the bank and pay with cash, but then I get penalized because
Dave Ramsey said I didn't need credit.
I know. So what do you suggest for that with people that need to start and have some type of credit card?
Yeah, so I would start with a secured credit card. If you can get approved for an unsecured credit card, do so. Whether if you use a credit union, there's certain places that you can get sort of an unsecured credit card, meaning you don't have to put money down as a deposit. And so I've seen, people get approved for unsecured credit cards. And so it's still going to be that, $300 to $500 limit card. But if you don't have a credit score at all, if you have nothing on your credit report, so your score is 0, it takes 6 months to register a FICO score. So even if you've had that credit card for 3 months, you're not going to pull a score if you don't have anything on your credit report. So somebody watching who's wanting to build credit, and because you're wanting to buy a house, that's something you'd want to jump on early. In fact, I had a loan officer not too long ago send me a credit report, and this guy didn't have any credit. And so he got added to his wife's credit cards, and those had only been open 6 to 9 months. He still wasn't registering a FICO score at all, even though those accounts were on his report and they were old enough that it should register a score. But since they were authorized user accounts and he had nothing else, it still didn't register a score, which I found to be strange, but all the more reason to open up an account in your name and not, just rely on piggybacking off of somebody's credit. Now, we do use authorized user to our advantage when possible. But it's situational. It doesn't always work, just the way that you want. And so credit card would be my number one recommendation, whether it be an unsecured or secured. The reason why is, like I said, length of credit history, nothing can help your credit like a credit card. And also, if you don't have a credit card at all, that just the way that a maxed out credit card would hurt your score because you have no available utilization. Not having a credit card is nearly the same thing, that you have no available credit. And so opening up a credit card helps that category as well. And then also, I was kind of joking about Dave Ramsey, but I do agree that you don't want to go into debt to have good credit, right? So I've had people ask me before, should I go finance a car to build my credit? No, I would not recommend that because that's going into debt to have good credit. But if you get a credit card, as long as you pay your balance off in full, it's not costing you anything. So you're building credit. If you have certain types of cards, you're getting rewards. But if you're paying your balances off in full, it's not costing you anything. And so that would be my recommendation.
That's very interesting. It takes 6 months to build a FICO score. I didn't know that. That's, because you hear people all the time, I don't have credit. I have to go get a credit card thinking, okay, in a month, okay, I paid it off. I'll have, I didn't know that. That's very interesting. So that's good to know for people that are listening that want to buy a home.
Yeah. I mean, if you literally have no credit. Now, a lot of people I get calls, every day and people say, I just don't have credit. I need to build credit. And then you look and they actually do have student loans or car payments from the past. They just may not have anything open right now. And so if that's the case, good. Let's open you up an account right now. But that past payment history is still helpful. So you'll be able to get there a lot quicker. But if your credit report's just, nothing on it whatsoever, then it would take 6 months.
Wow. Okay. So let's go through the process. If somebody wants to buy a house or just, of course that's the ultimate goal, but they have got a low credit score. So they come to you. So go through how do you start? What's the process? Now I know everybody's going to be different, but what overall is the process?
Yeah. So always start with the credit report. I like to have an initial conversation first and find out what their goal is. Cause like I said, it always starts with that. Credit advice is not one size fits all. You might hear me give some sort of advice even on this video that might be great for somebody, but not as good or the best thing for someone else. Because I tell people all the time, when I talk to people who are trying to fix their credit on their own, it's not like they're always doing it wrong. And that happens, but a lot of times they're doing sort of the right things. It's just not going to get them from A to B as quick and cheap as possible. They're spending more, paying off old accounts that they didn't need to worry about, or they're doing other things that aren't the most efficient way to get it done. And so that's where our free consultation comes in. So just finding out what the goal is. If I talk to a loan officer because it's someone who's wanting to buy a house and the loan officer says, yeah, we're needing to get them to a 640 or 660 or whatever the case may be, then we have a target. So we have a point A, now we have a point B. And so then we do a free consultation, review their credit report, and I basically use exactly what I just said a second ago with the pie chart. We go through their payment history, what's everything that can be done to improve this category. So I'll give them their steps, their action steps, do this, don't do this, do this, don't do this. This is what we can do for you. This is how long it would take. This is what it would cost. And I just go through the credit report with each item on the report, positive and negative, and, in order of importance, put together a game plan. And then sometimes if it's not about negative accounts and their credit card balances are good, then it's very easy to find inaccuracies or just things on a credit report, even on positive accounts, that are hurting someone's scores or costing them points. I just helped somebody the other day that their top score was above a 760. Their mid score was like right at 700. And the loan officer was wanting to get them to a 740 to get the best rates available. And I just noticed that one of his open accounts that he had for a long period of time wasn't reporting on that middle score, that bureau. And so we called the creditor. Sure enough, they said, yes, we report to all 3 credit bureaus. So we called TransUnion, and there was just an issue where that account was being reported basically on another file within the same bureau. And they had to merge the files together and merge the accounts together. And it took 5 days, but it got put on his credit report, or it started being reported on his credit report. And that's all it took. So it's just sort of being resourceful and figuring out what needs to be done.
So every case is different, but I mean, normally what's the range? Like if somebody comes in, I know it depends on scores and all that, but usually how long does it take to bring that up to, 640, 680, 700?
Yeah. So, well, 680, 700, that is dependent on, who it is and what's on the report and sort of what they're able to do, and so I say this, it's so broad, and I'm sure people roll their eyes when I say it, but we're going to make a long list of everything that can be done and do those things, and the variables are going to be, if they have derogatory accounts, how many are we going to be able to get off? It may be all of them. It may be half. It may be none. It's kind of like if you sort of, let's say you committed a crime, or I committed a crime and I hired an attorney to represent me. I may get off the hook. I may, get my sentence reduced, or I may just have to serve my time, and so we can get some things off, some things we can get repaired or improved, and then some things are just going to stay on there in some cases. So that's a variable we don't know. We just have to go through the steps and see what can be done. And then also, I had a conversation yesterday with a family in Houston that's wanting to buy a house. They have high credit card balances right now, and they just couldn't really commit to how much they felt like they could pay down on those per month. And so that makes time frame a variable, because we just have to wait and see. If they're able to pay them off tomorrow, well, that would make a big difference. But if it's going to take 6 to 8 months, then, that's sort of the answer there. And so there's a lot of variables, but on average, 1 to 6 months for us. Our software keeps track from the day someone enrolls to the day they're done, and a little over 4 months is what our software says the average time is that somebody's in our program. But we have plenty that finish in a month, and we have plenty that it even takes longer than 6 months, because just certain things that are just outside of everybody's control. But what you have to do is my main thing is I don't want anybody to think their situation can't be fixed, or that they're the worst credit report in the world, and they're just meant to rent, and they because it's not true. Anybody and everybody can improve their credit. Again, time is relative, but pretty quickly. And so it's just about knowing what to do, having your action steps, and just do those steps, monitor your credit month by month. And, you're going to get there. There's probably a lot of people listening right now that have done that themselves. They've realized how quick, because that's the number one good review we get is, wow, that was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. And so, just have to go through the steps and monitor it and see how it goes.
I think it depends, because I think people think, oh my God, like you said, my credit's really bad. I mean, everyone has to start someplace. That's why I'll talk to some people, they'll call in off a lead and they'll be like, well, I want to, but I don't even, do you know what your credit's? No, I never pulled it. I don't even want to know. And sometimes it's complete opposite. They get their credit back. I had one person 6 months ago that bought a house. She was at 705. She thought she had I think my score is like 5 something. I'm like, why did you think your score was 5 something? I go, do you miss your rent payment? No. Car payment? No. Just check it, and yep. I think, well, even now I've learned, and my husband is the same way with my last name, Young, we get our credit reports periodically, because I know when we were first buying a house, there was some judgment or something, and it wasn't my husband, but because our names are so common, it's good to check your credit your credit, you get that report to make sure that something didn't go on your credit that's not even you. And especially make it happen to anybody, but if you have common names, so I'm always like, check your credit. It's good.
On the common name thing, I had a father and 3 sons enroll in our program. All of their first names were Muhammad. They had the same first name and last name, all of them. Muhammad, I think, is, a very common name. And all of their accounts were sorted, and so it was a big mess, but that is much more common than probably people think for that to happen. Because just the way that the credit bureaus pull your information when a report's pulled, they don't always just, pull your social only. They go off of names and old addresses and everything.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's very common. But yeah, that's funny that you brought that up, because that happens a lot. I'll get somebody referred to me and they just assume their credit's bad. We pull it and it's like pretty darn good. And they're like,
yeah, your credit's good.
And so really, you just need to know, that kind of brings to what's the most common thing. The most common thing is people just avoiding it, just not wanting to take a look at it because, embarrassment or, just overwhelmed with what needs to happen and that sort of thing. And so the quicker that you do that, the better, so that you don't get in a position where you have to be credit ready in 30 days or, you feel like you're going to let your family down, or your rent's coming up, or your, lease is ending and you're trying to figure out where you're going to live, jumping on it quickly, or just at least finding out quickly, is always the right thing to do.
Well, I think it's so important too, because to have a good team to work with, like myself, we work with Bally with Supreme Lending. And I always tell people it's okay. I call people and they're like, well, I'm not ready for 6 months. You know what? That's awesome. Because let me tell you why. I mean, have you talked to a lender? No, I don't know how my credit is. Okay. Well, this is why it's good that you're 6 months out, because, talk to the lender, let them pull, credit, let them look at everything. And if there is something you need to fix, or maybe your credit score is 650 and you want to get it up to 700 or higher, because that will help your interest rate, it's good to look at that stuff. And like you said, I've been doing this for almost 17 years. And I always try to say to people, listen, let's not be so stressed out. Let's do all the due diligence up front so that, and like you said, we're not in 30, 45 days, we're panicking. You have to find out if your credit's okay. You got to try to fix something, and it could be just not their name and not that person, but still, I mean, it's good to work with a good team and have all that worked out ahead of time. So if you're listening and you do want to buy a house, but you're say, I want to buy in 2021, but I want to buy in 4, 5, 6 months, and definitely reach out, because this is the best time to work on all of that and figure out, how much money you have to bring, what your credit score is, what areas do you want to live in, start driving around. I mean, it's a great time. I mean, that's why we're here. Not everybody who comes to us is ready to buy in the next 30 days. I mean, heck, would that be nice? Sure. But that's not, that's not everyday life at all.
Sorry, the alarm went off. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that, from a credit standpoint, the sooner the better. Because like you said, it may not be that you're worried about getting approved. You might know that you're good to go there, but the amount that you could save. I mean, rates are so low, and the difference right now in, a 2.8, 2.7, I heard somebody say 2.5, which blew my mind. versus right now, even though we kind of laugh because it's still a darn good rate, but 3.1,
I
3.2,
know.
it's
Yeah.
a big difference,
Huge.
and so credit is a big part of that. But loan officers, Bally can work miracles. She's been
Yes.
doing this a long time, and so she has a little bit of time to get a head start on your file and figure out things that can be done. I mean, you're talking about a big savings. It's life-changing amounts that you could save, by taking those extra steps. So I'm a firm believer in that. Every time I get asked a question that's meant for a loan officer, I say, talk to a loan officer, because
Right.
they can literally work miracles. They can, just with the experience that they have, they can get it done.
That's why it's good to work with a good team and stay in your lane.
Mm-hmm.
Someone say, "What about my
Yep.
credit?" Let me give you a day because I don't know. Like, I
Yeah,
don't do
I
that.
do the
But
same.
that's it. So
Yeah.
let's since with everything that has happened in the last year, and with some of what they're predicting for this coming year. I mean, here come REO, here comes short sale, here comes foreclosure, and some people did forbearance. So can you explain what that looks like on your credit, a forbearance versus a foreclosure versus a short, just so, people are aware,
Yeah.
of where they stand.
Yeah, so the forbearance was really interesting. Still is. I'm still seeing some interesting things. So the way that creditors furnish data, that's what they call it, data furnishers, the way that they send your information to the credit bureaus is there's a certain format. It's called Metro 2, and they didn't have a way of communicating forbearance to the bureaus because this was all kind of new. And so a lot of people were getting late payments on their credit reports, but they were supposed to be in forbearance. And so I actually had an employee, a pretty higher up level employee of Experian, call me. She was referred because it happened to her. They had bought in a house. Her husband owned a gym and had to shut down. And so they went into a 3-month forbearance. In the second month, I think they sold their house. Of the 3 months, they sold their house. Selling the house paid off the mortgage. That third month reported late. And she'd been trying to dispute it herself online, and she works for Experian, had no luck. She had already filed a complaint with the CFPB and was getting ready to sue him. She was furious. And so I couldn't help but find that a tiny bit amusing, just because I had to let her know, look, a lot of people go through this. Like, welcome to everybody else's world. Because she was like, this is just not fair. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Let's have a meeting with your boss and talk about it. But they just didn't have a good way to report that information. So I've seen a lot of late payments on reports that shouldn't be there. So we're just kind of fighting that out, and it'll get sorted out. Different creditors talked about doing different things, whether, hey, if you do a 3-month forbearance, you might have to make up all those payments right then, or a 6-month forbearance, you might have to make up all those right then. And then some have even said they're going to put it all at the end of the loan, but you would have to pay it at one time. And so, some of that's just going to have to be settled by the sale of the house, because people aren't going to be able to do that. And that's where, like you said, foreclosures and short sales and things are going to come into play, because people aren't going to be able to make those payments. But what I've heard recently, some creditors are still haven't really committed if they're going to do, you need to pay all this at one time, or if they're going to allow it to be pushed to the end or let them pay it out. I've talked to a lot of people who still didn't know yet what was going to happen, but I can tell you, I didn't find one who said, yeah, if they need me to pay it all off, I can. Like, that's not going to be the case. And so we'll just have to see, if the government steps in. I would have to imagine that they can't because it would be bad, it would be a lot of people. And so I can't imagine that, it'll be, I don't know. It just happened so fast, and, creditors had to try to make decisions. It seems like a lot of them didn't want to commit to anything. But a foreclosure, a short sale, those things are reporting the same on a credit report. Those things hurt, those are severe. And it's going to take a while to bounce back, and that would be more of a question for a lender, as far as how long after a foreclosure can you get approved for a mortgage. And so that's kind of something that's good to know. It's possible for us to get foreclosures and bankruptcies off credit reports, but that doesn't mean that on a loan application you can say I didn't do it, or that I didn't file a bankruptcy. And so that would still hold you up, even if it's not on the credit report. And so, obviously you want to avoid that happening if possible. Talk to your creditor, talk to whoever holds your home loan, and try to stay on the good side of that. But Yeah, I mean, I really don't know. I don't have like an answer as to what that's going to look like. I think it's going to require some people kind of getting bailed out, or at
Yep.
least not the situation where they said you're going to have to pay it all at the end of the
Right.
forbearance.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
this has definitely
anything
been
pushing it to the end of the loan would be the way to do it.
would be the way to do it. Well, this has definitely been informative. I definitely learned something. So, if anybody has questions, Dane's information has been up on the screen. And also, you can comment and let us know. You can reach out to me personally and we can get you in touch with him. Definitely follow him on Facebook because, like I said, credit is such an important thing right now, and especially with everything going on. But even if you're 6 months or a year out or 4 months, I mean, it doesn't matter. Reach out to us. We work with the team. Like I said, we have an awesome lender. We're going to be doing a home buying seminar January 27th. So we will advertise that. Dana will be on and Bally will be on. So that way we'll talk about some of the mortgage side, the credit side, and the realtor side. But I really thank you for coming on today and sharing your knowledge. Like I said, I always learn something, and I hope you all did too. And like I said, if you have questions, put them in the comments. We'll get them to Dane. Reach directly out. His number is the 866-611-6560. Any final thoughts?
Thank you for having me. Yeah, absolutely. I always like to sell our free consultation. Our free consultation is the best thing that we offer, because credit repair itself, we do charge for that. All the pricing and everything's on the website. We do charge for that, but that's a part, of the whole picture. And so even if you don't want or need credit repair, take advantage of the free consultation. Like I said, it's all about getting from point A to point B as quick and cheap as possible. And so I love having those conversations and giving you the game plan and the tools and stuff like that. Because what I hate is getting the phone call after someone sort of tried to navigate through it and they just paid off a ton of collections and their scores are lower and I closed my credit card or I paid off my car early. I don't want those things to happen. And so that's why we do free consultations, just to help people kind of off to the right start. And just along the way, if anything credit related ever pops up, just give us a call.
Excellent. Well, thank you again for joining us. And again, on the 27th of January, we'll be doing the home buying seminar. We'll definitely advertise it. Make sure y'all tune in. And if you have any questions for Dane, just comment. He will look and we'll get him the information. So again, thank you so much, Dane. I wish you a Merry Christmas and a very happy and hopefully a little calmer 2021.
I'm hoping so. It feels a little weird to try to set any sort of goals or make plans, but hoping for good stuff.
Hoping for good stuff and positivity. We're going to get through it all together. So any real estate needs, lender needs, credit needs, please reach out to us. I'm Patricia Young with Follow My Heels Home, brokered by Real. And thank you all for tuning in. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.